IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. On the podcast today, we have Pranav Gogwekar, a writer, author, and content creator. He takes us to an idyllic coastal town in Maharashtra and explores not just the natural beauty of this place, but also the deep historical connections it has had. But before we jump into the episode and find out more, let me also tell you that we're doing a giveaway of Pranav's debut novel titled Expedition to an Alternate Swarajya. So listen to the episode and answer 3 simple questions that are linked in the show notes and stand a chance to win a copy of Pranav's book. Let's hop onto the episode and find out more. So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome Pranav Gogwekar, a writer, researcher, content creator, and recently turned author to the Musafir Stories. Hey Pranav, thank you so much for being on the podcast and welcome.
Thank you, Saif, for having me here. It feels great to be part of a podcast, which is not my own. Actually, I have a very tiny YouTube channel where I sometimes put on my views on different stuff related to history, mythology, and fiction. So this is first time I'm on a legit podcast, I guess.
No, we're all in the same boat, Pranav. As long as we're putting out content, it's sometimes a podcast or a vlog, so all of us are in the same boat. But extremely honored and excited to have you, Pranav. The intro I gave was very brief and concise. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? And you're a brand new author, I should say. So please tell us a little bit more about your book as well, Expedition to an Alternative Swarajya. The title is very, very intriguing and interesting. So tell us a little bit more.
Sure. So I am a writer, history researcher, content creator. I write on history, mythology, fiction. I'm an aspiring screenwriter and I have written lots of stories, and one of the screenplays I have turned it into a novel, which is my first novel, Expedition to an Alternate Swarajya. It's a sci-fi fiction set in an alternate universe where India was never colonized by the British. So it is set in modern day India, but in that world, Indian kingdoms were able to stop British from taking over. So how would India look today if the British had not conquered? And it's a sci-fi. So there are sci-fi elements with political history and alternate history, all those kinds of causation. Causation is the main conflict.
Yeah, it does appear to be an extremely interesting read, and especially the alternative or alternate history aspect of it also excites me a lot. We will figure a way out to see how some of our listeners can also enjoy this book, and a big congratulations on getting out your first novel as well, Pranav. Also, from your introduction, we do see that you have a heavy leaning towards history and mythology as well. I think that's how I stumbled upon some of your other work too, and that's how this podcast came about, right? It's one of the articles that you had written about a place that was very, very significant in the past, and just talking about that and the connections and why it was that important. So really looking to explore that aspect of your personality and work on the podcast today. Without me giving away too much, why don't you tell us a little bit more about where you're taking us to today?
So I'm taking to this town in southern Konkan region of Maharashtra. It's called Vengurla. Although it's not a very well-known place like other places you might have heard of, but it has a very interesting history. And as it is located in Konkan, near Goa, so it also gives you Goa-like vibes. And unlike Goa, it's not a very mainstream tourist destination, so you won't find a lot of tourists, and so it's relatively peaceful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pranav also has some familial connections to the place, so that also definitely helps in the conversation. Hearing from somebody who has actually visited there multiple number of times and knows a thing or two about the background of the place too. And for me personally, right, obviously I've heard Vengurla in the passing, and we've actually touched upon it in a couple of episodes too when covering Mumbai, Goa road trips. So our exposure to Vengurla has been very minimal. But the thing that kind of ticked off my curiosity about Vengurla was I was recently watching this. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the movie called Three of Us,
Oh yeah,
starring Shefali Shah and
yeah.
I forget his name, right? The actor as well. He's done brilliantly well. The guy from Patal Lok. It is set in Vengurla to the most part, and that kind of really triggered my curiosity that I have to find out more about the place. And as I was digging, and one thing led to the other, and finally we have Pranav here on the podcast, getting to cover Vengurla. Can you also, before we get into the specifics and the conversation, right? Just getting here, Pranav, in terms of options, how one can get here, how well connected this is. Can you outline that for us too, please?
Sure. First of all, it's my village. So I go there very often, and my family goes there very often, and have been going there. Most of the time, we get there through train. We get down at the Kudal station, and it's half an hour, 45 minutes from there, roughly 20 kilometers. If you are getting a rickshaw, it will take 45 minutes. If you're getting a car, it will take half an hour or something. And usually we go that way, but you can directly go by get a car or something. And it's closer, like from Sawants of Wadi it's 30 kilometers, from Kudal station it's 20, and from Goa, from Panjim it's 60 kilometers. So if you're visiting Goa and you're coming from Goa, it will take roughly 2 hours if you are coming by a car, like getting a car or something. Yeah, so, and as it's a native place, I usually live in my home, so I don't have to get a hotel or something. But there are plenty of options over there, and I'm sure you'll find whatever suits you. And let me start first of all. So Vengurla, that town has got the award for the cleanest city in Maharashtra multiple times, but very few people know about its history. Like today is just another town in the Konkan region, but it has multiple historical milestones. Let me start with how it comes into prominence. So it must have been an important trade route since ancient times and mentioned here like in different sources. But the word Vengurla starts coming in since the time of British and the Portuguese. So so Goa, before becoming a Portuguese stronghold, it was part of the Adil Shahi of Bijapur,
Right.
that kingdom. And and in fact, it was taken over by the Portuguese from Adil Shah. And Adil Shah the Adil Shah dynasty, they wanted to keep Portuguese influence in check. At the same time, the Dutch East India Company, they wanted to get an entry to Western India, and they and the Portuguese were rivals. So what happened was the Dutch East India Company and the Muhammad Adil Shah. This was in the 17th century, mid 17th century. He gave permission to the Dutch East India Company to build a factory in Vengurla. And the reason was, so Vengurla was in close proximity to Goa, and this was their attempt to blockade Portuguese ship from leaving Goa towards Lisbon. And they were able to successfully do that for quite some time. So once upon a time, it was very important port in Maharashtra. And that continued till the start of Maratha Empire, when Chhattrapati Shivaji Maharaj, when he started off his independent kingdom, he wanted to mint his coins, and he needed lots of copper. And from this place, the Dutch had provided him that copper. So in a way, Vengurla is important because the economy of Maratha Empire sort of began or has its root in this area. So that's why the Marathas and the Dutch had very good relations. Later on, many years later, when Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was ruling the Maratha Empire, that time Prince Muhammad Akbar, who was son of Aurangzeb, he and the Rajputs had revolted against Aurangzeb's rule, but that revolt failed, and Muhammad Akbar had to escape the Mughal Empire. So he took refuge under Sambhaji, but he couldn't stay for long. So he had taken refuge in this very fortified Dutch factory, and from there he escaped to Persia. So this is a very important political event that had taken place, and this port had trade routes from Persia to as far as Japan. So this was once upon a time a very important port. But what happened, because the Dutch had given refuge to his rebellious son, when Aurangzeb invaded Maharashtra, he destroyed the whole Dutch factory, and since then that whole fort went in decline. Eventually, Dutch left India, and Dutch were driven out of India completely by the other European powers and also by many Indian kingdoms. So that was the end of it, end of Dutch rule, not rule, but Dutch influence in the region. Later on, that place came under the Sawants of Wadi, the princely state of Wadi, and it became an important port under them. Their main naval base was in Vengurla, but eventually, when it came under the British rule, the British took it over, and that became an important port for the British. Now, during British rule, slowly and steadily, because the trade routes were changing and railways were coming in, the importance of Vengurla slowly went into decline. But one interesting thing happened during British rule was Sir Arthur Crawford, who is known for his Crawford Market in Mumbai. Before becoming municipal commissioner of Mumbai, he was posted in Vengurla. And it was he who had created this Crawford Market in Vengurla prior to what he created in Mumbai. It's like a town hall. The first floor is the town hall with a clock tower, and the ground floor is a market. It's still in use. So it's an interesting thing that prior to Mumbai, he had created a prototype of a market in Vengurla. So that's an interesting thing which I had found out during my research.
Yeah, some really important and very, very interesting tidbits, like you say, right? Again, like we mentioned at the beginning, Vengurla has always been like one of the picturesque coastal towns that you potentially pass through as you're making a Mumbai-Goa road trip. And I wouldn't have really thought about the many layers of history and how significant it was as well in the past several hundred years. So thank you for highlighting those points for us as well. And clearly the Dutch influence does seem to be pretty heavy, right? Especially during that period of the 16th, 17th century.
17th century, yeah.
17th century. What about the current status of that, the fortified factory, right? Because even though we are saying factory and they used it primarily for trade and stuff like that, it wasn't just a little building, right? It was like a fortified installation. So what about its current status now? Is that something one can visit, Pranav?
It's in its worst condition right now. ASI have put out a board that do not enter this. It can collapse anytime, but thankfully it's still there. It's really in a bad condition, but you must visit it for its historical importance, and it's not allowed to enter the fort. So basically it's a warehouse which has been fortified through walls. Yeah, so unless you are interested in the history, you won't find it visually appealing. So there is nothing of, unlike in Goa, you see all the Portuguese architecture, nothing of that sort. But you can find out how it looked like through old pictures. And also there are a few images you can find on the internet and from my article. And I have on my YouTube channel, I had made a vlog on Vengurla, where I had covered a lot of places, including that fort.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. And obviously, we'll make sure we add all of these important links in the description of the episode so you can check them out. And also, in terms of the primary trading activity, right? Like they initially, when they came in, obviously they came in as a trading company. So they're basically taking like textiles and spices and stuff like that from here, right? I found this bit about the copper coins as well very interesting, right? That has some pretty significant and long-lasting impact on how like even events played out in history, right?
Yeah.
So that is also a very, very key milestone, I would definitely say, that has its roots here in Vengurla. So thank you for touching that upon. From the British times here, right? Like when they took it over from the Sawants of Wadi. And by the way, subtle plug here, we did cover an episode on Sawant Wadi as well a little while ago, probably a year or so ago. So do check that out. We'll make sure to link that too. In terms of the British influence here, any other structures besides the Crawford Market that you mentioned, Pranav?
Not much of colonial structure that I see around. There is a church, but that's very Portuguese, and that's very Portuguese Catholic influence. So I don't think the British had to do anything about it. But I don't think there is any, like for example, in Mumbai we have lots of colonial buildings, architecture. In Vengurla, I don't see any structure of that sort. But the buildings are around that town hall. They are pretty old, but they are very simple architecture. It's very Konkan style architecture. You might find some subtle influence of the from the west, but I don't think there is nothing of that sort. It's in a way it's very simple, and even this structure, unlike the Crawford Market of Mumbai, which is in like Indo-Gothic or whatever the architecture style is, this one is quite simple. It's in a sense, and recently they have painted it and they even lit it up in the evening. But it is simple.
Okay.
It's don't expect some Gothic style structure over there.
Okay, no, good to know. And thank you for covering off this long list of important historical milestones as well, right? And helps us kind of add a little bit of color to the past of Vengurla as well. Now, in terms of, again, as somebody who's passing through here, it can easily be a good pit stop to take, let's say, a break of a day or two, and perhaps even longer if one prefers. But for somebody choosing to have a stop over here and explore the town, what other places of importance would you suggest one checks out?
So there are a few places which we do visit whenever we go to Vengurla. One of it is the Sagreshwar beach. It's a very clean beach. Very few people come to visit that place. Now it's changing, but yeah, that's a very eye-soothing place to visit. So that's one place where we go. Second place is the Bandar, the port, where you can get all the very fresh fishes depending on the time of the season you go there. And from there, if you climb up, you can go and visit the lighthouse. And interestingly, this lighthouse has its light red. So this is one of those lighthouses which alerts the ships that okay, there is a port over here, but it's not that safe to directly come to this port because there are many small rocks on the way. So that the beam of light is red. So this is not very common.
Right.
And there is another lighthouse which is called Vengurla Rock Lighthouse, which is located deep into the sea, where there are some small islands, tiny islands, but it's you can go there, but it's very adventurous and very risky place to be. So those two are important lighthouses. Apart from that, you can check out other places like Nimuska, or it's a hill besides the port, from where you can see the ocean. Very wonderful view you will get there. And you can also try out the berries called karvanda. It's a sour. I don't know. The taste is different. It's not sweet, but people like to try that out. So you can visit that place. Then, not little far from the main town of Vengurla, there is this camp area where which used to be a military camp, I guess, but now it has been turned into a garden. You can visit that place, and in that area they have created this fruit research center where they research and develop new breeds of fruit, especially mangoes and cashews. You can try and visit that place as well.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And if you are a foodie and you want to try something different, first of all, seafood. You can try and visit that place as well. And if you are a foodie and you want to try something different, that you must try. But even if you're vegetarian or even if you're non-vegetarian, you can try this amboi and that's black watana's usal. So if you have you can try that. So amboi or ghawan, it's like dosa, a pancake like dosa, but it's consumed like a bread. And talking of bread, you can also try the square alni pav, which is found there. So just like every city of Maharashtra has their own version of misal, you can misal and misal pav. You can try Vengurla's that alni pav and the black watana's usal. So that is something unique over there. So alni pav is basically, I think it's a pav without salt, and it is different. It's quite unique, and you won't find it beyond Vengurla. So if you want to try that, you can try that out. Then of course, then there is, just like Faluda, there is this milk drink called cocktail. It's nothing to do with alcohol. It's milk and ice cream kind of a drink. You can try that out in the main town, in the shops, or in the whatever the ice cream parlors in the region.
Yeah, some interesting mix of local cuisine as well, right? Especially the different types of pav, and yeah, I mean the fish and the seafood, right? No points for guessing that's obviously going to be hit among a lot of the eateries there. So definitely do try that out. But thank you for sharing all of those details. I also wanted to double click on a couple of places, right? Firstly, the lighthouse you mentioned, and there seems to be like two lighthouses, right? And even in your article, you mentioned the first lighthouse, the one that is like on the coast itself. Just an interesting tidbit I came across, that it's actually connected to the port through set of underground stairs. And then this other one is the one that is more interesting, I think, right? I don't know how. So technically, is it accessible? The one on the rocks?
Yeah. There are people who will take you there. And honestly, even if you go there, first of all, it's in deep, not very deep, but it's in you have to go deeper.
Yeah, it's 8 kilometers from the port as well.
Yeah, and it's, you just have to, and it's not a proper island kind of a thing. It's a rock, so you will have to climb those rocks, and I don't know how safe that is.
Yeah,
but adventurous people go there. And that old lighthouse is again older, and it's again in ruins. But I have seen somebody make a vlog on that place, so I guess it's accessible. But it depends person to person if they find it worth going there.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just that it comes across as very interesting, and it is also like referred to as it's basically a series of about 20 or so rocks, right?
Yeah.
And on one of the bigger ones is the lighthouse. It's referred to as the burnt rocks of Vengurla as well, or the burnt islands.
Burnt
right?
islands. Yeah.
Yeah, so very interesting, and also seems to, like, I was just digging in a little bit out of curiosity, and it seems to have a very like these rocks or islands. They seem to have a pretty interesting biodiversity too, with some very rare birds as well that actually nest there and stuff like that.
Yes,
right?
yes.
The swiftless and rock pigeons. So just some interesting things I came across. But the lighthouse, the second one, which is like about 8 kilometers into the sea, that did appear as very interesting and kind of one of those haunted ones you come about in movies and stuff. And about the beaches too, right? Obviously, given that this is a little more offbeat, I'm sure the beaches are not as populated and busy like some of the other towns in Goa or like proper Mumbai, right, where it gets super busy. Any other beaches, like you called out the Sagareshwar beach? I came across this Vangani beach and I think Mokhemad or Mochemad, I don't know how it's pronounced, but those couple of beaches also seem to be pretty picturesque and fairly offbeat, right?
Yeah. Also, there is one Newti beach, Bhogwe beach, which is not like, it's around in the same region, so you can explore that as well. And talking of haunted and horror stories, let me talk about some unique temples in Vengurla. So now that all the Kshetrapals or the tutelary deities have become famous after the movie Kantara, So even Vengurla has some unique temples. So out of the main, there are many temples. Like one is Rameshwar and Sateri, who are the sort of Gram Devat. So Rameshwar is Shiva and Sateri is Durga. So Sateri is a unique temple which is built on an ant hill or a snake burrow. So, and it's the iconography is very simple. That's a unique thing to only to Konkan. Another god, which another deity will find is the Vetoba. So Vetoba is basically Vetal. And he's also another Kshetrapal, and you will find his temple in Goa and parts of Konkan. And the idol of Vetoba is very huge, and you'll have to see it to know how it looks like. So the Vetal is worshipped in the Konkan region, and he's considered to be the king of all the Bhut and Pret or whatever. And he's also considered one of sons of Shiva in some Puran. So that's a very unique and interesting fact about gods in Konkan. Another important temple you should visit in Vengurla, and this is in this you will find it while visiting Sagreshwar, is the Manseshwar. So Manseshwar is located on the bank of a river or a creek. There is no iconography. You will see lots of saffron flags which are offered by devotees to the god. And you're not allowed to honk while passing by, and it's another form of Kshetrapal. And this god, this deity, you won't find anywhere else. So this is very unique to Vengurla.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. It's called, is it the Manseshwar temple?
Yeah, Manseshwar temple.
Okay. And even the previous one you mentioned, right? I may be like crossing my wires, or I'm not very sure. I know there was one, it was probably Vitoba temple, where you actually, like, as offerings, you leave slippers or something.
Kolhapuri
right?
chappals.
Kolhapuri chappals,
huge ones, because the idol is huge.
Yeah. So that was also like very unique, right? You don't often find that across a lot of the other temples. And I can't remember which episode, because we've done an episode on Kolhapur as well as Sawants of Wadi. I don't know in which one we covered this off, but somebody made a very profound point that not only do you get to see the temple, but you also get to see the evolution of Kolhapuri chappals, right? Like, because this is being done through several years, how there's subtle changes to the way the chappals look and stuff like that. Which is very interesting as well. I think not only is the way of offering these slippers unique, but you also get to see how these slippers themselves have evolved over time. But yeah, thank you for covering off. I think the unique thing you also see in a lot of these temples is the temple architecture, right? It tends to be very the Konkan architecture influenced in most of these temples, right?
So Konkani architecture is quite simple. It's terracotta roofs, basic the way you will find houses in Konkan. It's just like that.
Yeah.
So but this is one unique thing about the architecture of Konkan is because its proximity to Goa, and so you might find some Portuguese influence in it. So there are lots of temples in Vengurla.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, these some of the important ones you have called out, and we'll make sure to include those in the description too for somebody to check out their images. And the other interesting bit also, I know you touched upon this at the beginning itself, is it's Vengurla has been identified as one of the, you mentioned, cleanest cities in Maharashtra, right? And I came across this little news part as well that apparently this is also one of the very few towns that actually has a really good waste management system implemented, right? And they're actually net positive, they generate revenue out of waste every year. So that's also very interesting, and I think something for other, even smaller towns, I mean bigger towns as well, but at least for the smaller towns to perhaps try and model on this, basically segregating waste and then utilizing that. And there's supposed to be a big waste management plant as well, right? Made out of a landfill.
Yes. So it's called Swachh Bharat Waste Park, and it's another tourist destination. You can visit that place as well. So where people come to see how a dumping ground is, basically how
Yeah.
the waste is recycled, or like it's like they have turned it into a tourist destination. So just imagine the kind of good work they are doing.
Yeah. So just an interesting bit, and even about the cashews you mentioned, right? I was pretty surprised to see that actually cashews from Vengurla are GI tagged.
Yeah.
I guess the Fruit Research Institute, right? That's the place you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That possibly has a big hand in basically all of the research and the work they put into developing these unique varieties. And I'm sure even the mangoes of the region too, right? I mean, in general, the mangoes from the coastal areas, right? Be it Goa or here, Ratnagiri is famous for it, but even in Vengurla, I'm sure you have your own varieties and everything of mangoes. But yeah, a few different things we covered over the last few minutes, be it the historical aspect of it, which obviously is your area of interest, to the natural aspects like the beaches, as well as the temples and the backstories to the temples in the region, and of course the cuisine, right? Everybody is always interested in the local cuisine of the place. So thank you so much for covering off all of these important things. In terms of people who are interested in following your work, be it the writing you do or even your novel, what's the best way to connect or follow you, Pranav?
You can follow me on YouTube, on my channel, Pravyav Now, where I post content on history, mythology, and fiction. And you will find my vlog on Vengurla over there. And you can also follow me on other sister channels of that channel. So there is this Pravyav Now Original Stories, where I am going to post fiction. Then you can visit Instagram, Prabhyav Now, to get an update on my content. And you can visit my profile, Pranav Gogwekar. It's a unique name, so you'll easily find me. And if you search online, you can come across some of my articles, be it Vengurla. There is one on Kantara. There is one on Thai Brahmins, which I have recently published. Yeah, mostly history-related content. You can get in touch, follow my channel. You can buy my novel, Expedition to an Alternate Swarajya, which is available on Amazon, Flipkart, Notion Press, Kobo, Kindle. It's almost it's available almost everywhere.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we'll make sure to include all of these links in the description as well. So that way you could easily follow Pranav's channels and his work. And we'll potentially work something out too. So listeners, do stay tuned. Given how interesting Pranav's novel appears to be, we might mix it up with quick giveaway related to this episode, as well as a couple questions about the novel. So whoever is interested can definitely take part in that giveaway and stand a chance to win a copy of Pranav's book. Anything new in the works, Pranav? Are you working on your second novel already, or what plans next?
So I am going to write a prequel on this novel, which will be set in 18th century roughly. It's a prequel based on the same universe that I have created. I'm also simultaneously working on a non-fiction book, Hinduism Simplified. It's just at conceptual level. And apart from that, I'm also working on some feature film scripts and web series script, which I am going to pitch this year. And I hope some of them get turned into a film or a series.
Yeah, no, very, very exciting times ahead indeed. And we'd like to wish you all the best on all of these different projects and initiatives that you're working on. And a big thank you from the Musafir Stories as well, Pranav, for being on the podcast and shedding some light on this lesser known gem in the coastal belt of Maharashtra, that is Vengurla, and just sharing how important it has been over the past and what the different layers that it's deeply been dripped into as well, right? So thank you so much, Pranav. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you once again for having me here. This is the first podcast I'm going to be in. So yeah, it's really special.
First of many, let's hope, right? But thank you so much. Thank you, Pranav. Thank you. That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.